individuals who come in for the clinical studies, to be participants in the clinical studies. So we know that there have been 2 drugs in the past 3 years that have been approved by the FDA that actually do have an effect, a measurable effect on the progression of the disease, slows the progression of the disease. But I got the statistics in front of me right here. These are trials with 1,800 people, and 94% of them in the United States were white. 4.5% of them were African Americans. So these are drugs that have been approved basically on white people. So I was actually in a conference where someone from a drug company who I won't name was making a presentation, and I actually got up to the microphone and I said, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank you for being so concerned about people who look like me. Now let's talk about the people who don't look like me. So what's happening now is these drugs have been proved, and we actually put in an editorial out in the journal that I edit, that when a patient goes to the doc and wants to take these drugs, the medical practitioners need to inform them, fully inform them, whether or not they have been studied when exposed to this drug. And if not, that has to become part of their decision. Because as we discussed, the mixed pathologies differ with ancestry. So the response to the drug may differ with ancestry, and we don't know the answer to that. I started taking a cholesterol medication 1.5 years ago called rosuvastatin. And being a pharma industry nerd, as I am, I always read the label when I'm taking a new drug. And I really focused on one page for rosuvastatin. I was being prescribed the appropriate dose, but if I had Asian ancestry, the appropriate dose was half of what I'm supposed to be taking. And I'm looking at that saying, how did they figure that out? So, this is precision medicine that needs to be brought into the full understanding of the disease. This is not just an ancestral issue. This is a biological issue because, mixed ancestries is the norm. It's not the exception. So if we're going to understand the biology of the disease, we have to understand the biology of the disease in all ancestries, and then we'll really understand what it is we're trying to treat.
So, Dr. Greenberg, so, I mentioned that I was there. I was for a short period of time at Notre Dame. I was a walk-on, considered myself, well, I guess I'd be Rudy's backup, but an athlete at some point in my life. If I were able to still do a backflip right now, I would do it because I wish part of the discussion last week at the Brain Health Conference was how can we get more people, African Americans, involved in clinical trials? And the answer for me is telling the truth. Stop running from the elephant in the room. Tuskegee, no, syphilis is not, it's not transmitted that way. And it was when that Tuskegee study started, they thought they were doing a good thing up until 1947. You had a bunch of people that worked in the farms, there were sharecroppers. All of a sudden, you got involved in a clinical trial by the government. You had healthcare, the whole nine. And then penicillin came out, the gold standard for syphilis treatment, and then it was denied them, right? So that's the travesty. But let's talk about the fact that it was a travesty and then start educating, having the hard conversation and being able to ride the storm out and talk through to the other side to present facts like what you just said. The gold of this conversation so far is what you just said. It's not an ancestral thing. It's a biological thing. How did they know that? The only way that you can know that is if you get involved. And if you give information now you've worked in multiple countries as I have, every country that I go to, if I involve them in the process, they own it and they want to own it. We give them the information. We listen to the best way to transmit it to that culture and that community. And then they own it. Once they own it, you'd be surprised how inclusive they are and how successful they feel. What happens a lot of times with clinical trials, particularly when we're talking about something as difficult as Alzheimer's, is we get people to participate but we don't go back. We recruit, but we don't go back to give them the results. Either we, it was a Super Bowl. We won together, we lose together, but it bonds us. And that bonding, whether we win or lose, builds community trust. So having conversations like this, saying it's not old timers, it's Alzheimer's. We have an expert researcher that's done this for decades, and it's not ancestral, it's biological. And we need you to help us help you with your loved ones. I mean, it's having that. Like I said, y'all would probably need to figure out a telehealth visit, because I would break both my knees and my back trying to do a backflip. But I'm sorry I had to interject that. Just telling the truth. Just tell the truth.
And it does take commitment to the community. You're absolutely right. Community relations, and it's an ongoing community interaction. It's not just to enroll people in your clinical study, but it's to actually become part of the community,
Yes.
and to build that trust and the ongoing trust.
You know,
So
they say high functioning societies are child centered, adult governed, and elder ruled. And what that means is everyone is included. Everyone deals with the problem, and everyone deals with the solution. Because what happens is, if we educate on the front end about this, you don't have to deal with the back end. How many times have you seen the grandkids escorting grandpa or grandma around the house, helping them with their memory, trying to help? Because it's that same village. The same grandparent or parent that nurtured those kids and grandkids are the same ones the kids have the opportunity to pour back into. So again, it's conversation, it's education, it's the bi-directional arrow of the sender message receiver equation, and not talking to everyone like we're lecturing, even though that's what we're used to, and learning from the community. And this is gold.